Welcome to episode 35 of the Gambots Podcast. I'm your host, Eric, and this is my co host.
It's Christian.
On this week's episode, we are going to be discussing the Netflix original Unicorn Store. I have played a fair bit of Mortal Kombat 11. There's been some PlayStation 5 news released in the past month since we have done our normal show, and there has been some YouTube drama with the video game reviewer proJared, and we will be playing our Amazon review game. But first, Christian, you saw Unicorn Store this week. What did you think of it?
It was very, very weird. It was Brie Larson's directorial debut, so I was really looking forward to it. It has Brie Larson and Sam Jackson. So after enjoying Captain Marvel as much as I did, I was really looking forward to seeing the two of them again. So I was pretty excited for this one.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about this, but when I brought up the IMDb, I can't believe that Brie Larson and Samuel Jackson are starring in two movies in the same
Yep.
year.
Yeah, and the cast is pretty big. Like there's a lot of people in it. I remember seeing most of them in the trailer, but I'd kind of forgotten about it because it had been a while since I watched it till I got around to actually watching the movie. And so, like every 10 minutes or so, I was like, "Oh man, they're in it! Oh man, he's in it!" So it's yeah, Brie Larson and Samuel L. Jackson. Bradley Whitford plays Brie Larson's father, who I just love him in basically everything. Joan Cusack plays her mother. Um, Ryan Hansen is in it, who I really enjoyed seeing because I've been watching a lot of Veronica Mars, and he plays just a truly awful human being in Veronica Mars, and he couldn't be farther from that in this. So that was an interesting heel turn.
So, what is this movie about?
It is about a girl named Kit who has failed out of art school. She basically grew up wanting to just like she grew up wanting to do that, just be like an artist, but be like a very like aggressively flamboyant, I guess is the way I would put it. Like lots of very bright colors. Um, Nothing's really structured in any way. Like it shows her at the beginning just kind of splashing colors on the canvas and not even hitting the canvas most of the time. Uh, but once she fails out of art school, it's about her trying to force herself to be a grown up. So she joins a temp agency and gets placed in like a marketing firm, and she's trying to like learn how to sell vacuums with this marketing firm. And then it kind of gets derailed after she meets Samuel L. Jackson, and he offers to sell her a unicorn. So then the rest of the movie then is about her trying to become a person who is worthy of owning a unicorn. So he gives her like a checklist of you need to make sure you're financially stable. You need to make sure you have a place where the unicorn can live. You need to make sure you have hay that the unicorn can eat. And I guess it has to be multicolored hay because she dyes it with Easter egg dye. And it's very, very strange.
It sounds like a checklist you would need for either like a pet or a child, minus the hay.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure what the lesson is in this because it's almost exactly like you said. Like it seems to me like in their original writing of this, the plan was for the lesson to be it's okay to be yourself. Like because throughout she kind of learns to embrace her like silly childish side instead of trying to shove it down. But instead, it kind of lands on in order to be fulfilled in life, you need a child. Because yeah, the entire movie is basically just about preparing yourself to like serve this new life that's going to be coming to live with you. So like yeah, make sure you can buy it everything it needs, make sure you can feed it, make sure you can house it. Is your house worthy of it? Is like how's your family life is one of the things, so she has to work out unresolved issues with her parents, like it yeah. So it ends up being it ends up seeming at least like an allegory for like getting ready for a child, and it's that falls a little flat.
Does it come off as a bit preachy?
Not necessarily preachy, just I don't know, maybe like a little condescending almost. Not quite that either. It's Yeah, I'm having a hard time coming up with the right word for it. It's just it's a little off-putting.
Is a unicorn actually real? Do you find out?
Yeah, so that's like a key thing. So I guess spoilers for this if you don't want to know, skip ahead a little bit. But yeah, so she goes through all this and then she brings her friend to the store and the unicorn store is gone. It's all packed up. It's just an empty building. And they're freaking out because she gave Sam Jackson like her financial information because that was one of the checklist things. So now maybe he's an identity thief. But then at the end, yes, the unicorn is real. She goes to pick it up and it's there. And she decides she's grown enough that she doesn't need it anymore. And so she lets the other woman who's been working towards getting it have the unicorn instead.
Interesting plot points there. So how was there anyone in this that you were really excited about, or who performed really well?
Yeah, so Bradley Whitford is amazing. Like I love him in almost everything. The first thing and really the only thing I'd seen him in for a very long time was he played Josh in West Wing, which was on I think it started in 1998, 1999, and he was one of my favorite characters in that. I loved him. He was in Cabin in the Woods. He was one of the control room operators, and that was really the only thing I'd ever seen him in. But after last year, he played like the evil father in Get Out, and after that, he's had like a bit of a resurgence. He's been in a number of things. He's got another show coming out this fall, I think, on HBO, where he's in charge of like a church choir, maybe. Which I don't know. It looks good, but I'm happy he's getting a bunch of work again because I'd like seeing him and stuff.
How was Joan Cusack in it?
She was good. There were some legitimately touching moments in this, and I would say all of the cast did a really good job. It was just a little strange movie, but like the Brad Whitford and Joan Cusack run it's like an outdoor odyssey like camp for like troubled teens, I think. And there's a couple scenes there and like the teens come up to Brie Larson and tell her like we just lie when they ask us to like share our feelings because then we can move on. And like Bradley Whitford then has a scene where he's like, we know they're lying, like their lives are terrible, we have to let them we have to let them ease into this. Like of course they're gonna lie the first couple times, but eventually they stop and then they can start to grow. And so like there were some legitimately very well written, very nice moments in this, but they're overshadowed by a lot of just the very bizarre.
Is there any bizarre scenes where you're like, well, that was ridiculous?
Yeah, there's one in particular. Like she's trying to win over her boss and like learn to sell vacuum cleaners, and she gives a presentation that she's not really invited to do. She just kind of hijacks this meeting, and she comes in covered head to toe in like glittery tassels, and she's throwing glitter and confetti all over everybody. And it was just stressful to watch because I'm thinking about if I was in this meeting and this woman threw glitter in my chicken, I would lose my mind. And so yeah, like she comes in like full crazy mode, and she's talking about believing in your dreams and embracing the power of like colors and things. And I was just like, no,
The
I'm
one
I'm not on board for this.
the one guaranteed way to get fired at work is to throw glitter everywhere because you cannot get that out of anything and no one likes it.
Nope, it was stressful.
Did she lose her job? Because I mean,
uh yes.
good. Went for realism there.
Yeah, I can't remember if she gets fired or if she just quits out of disappointment that nobody reacted to the confetti the way she wanted them to, but yeah, she is definitely unemployed after that scene one way or another.
So looking on Rotten Tomatoes, it looks like the critics gave this a 64% and the audience a 43%. Where do you fall on this one?
I'm probably closer to 60 just for the actor performances. Like I said, everyone in this was great. I don't think it deserves a 40. Maybe the writing alone deserved a 40. But the performances really elevate this in a way that wouldn't have been otherwise.
So would you recommend our viewers check this one out?
Honestly, probably not. Like it was, yeah, it was good, and everyone in it was good, but it was longer than I would have wanted to dedicate to this particular story.
NetherRealm Studios recently released Mortal Kombat 11, and I've gotten a chance to check it out. Now, full disclosure, this is not going to be my normal Platinum review because I've not yet Platinumed it, but I'm pretty much at the point where I'm just grinding, so I just need to play the same mode for another 30 hours and I'll have it, or something like that, maybe 20 hours. So I feel like I can give a pretty good perspective on this so far. So, Mortal Kombat was released by NetherRealm Studios. If everyone really knows Mortal Kombat back from the 90s when it was owned by Midway, and they made, I believe, 8 games under Midway, and then Midway collapsed, and NetherRealm Studios got the rights, and they started their own thing, and Mortal Kombat really got rebooted with Mortal Kombat 9. And so, Mortal Kombat 9, 10, and 11 are basically a trilogy where you follow the story of Raiden trying to undo all the events that led through the storylines of Mortal Kombat's 1 through 8, which ultimately resulted in the destruction of all life and Shao Kahn ruling the world. And so this one ties up this trilogy. So I really like the Mortal Kombat stories, especially 9, 10, and 11. I haven't actually played 9 and 10, but I've watched almost all the story playthroughs on YouTube just because I really like the characters in these games, which is surprising for a fighting game. They do story mode right. It is essentially a 5-hour movie punctuated by you doing fights. And there's, I think, 12 chapters in this one, and you do about 4 or 5 fights per chapter. And it's just an excuse to have you check out all the different stages. But I do like the backdrop that they have and everything. So this one primarily follows the idea that a god, it was mad at Raiden, who is one of the main characters, the original one, the lightning god, for disturbing the balance she had made of good and evil, and he had tipped it too far on the side of good. So she starts rewinding time, and you get a whole time travel dynamic where old characters come into the current timeline and they meet their counterparts, and some of them disappear. And it basically retcons a lot of stuff that happened in Mortal Kombat 9 and 10. So it looks like going from 12 on, everything will be wiped and they will choose what they have thought worked, and it'll be its whole new timeline. But overall, I really did enjoy this story. I primarily bought this game to play the story mode, and I'm happy I did. It was awesome.
Man, I can't believe there have been 11 Mortal Kombats.
Yeah, so the first 3 are 2D fighters, and then 4 through Armageddon, but really 8 are 3D fighters like Tekken or Soul Calibur, and I did not like those ones too much. And then starting with 9, 10, and 11, they went back to 2D fighters, similar to the Injustice series, because NetherRealm also does that. They also did Mortal Kombat vs. DC, which was a 2D fighter as well.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, so that's the story mode. Obviously, in a fighting game, is the minor portion of it. Other things this game include are they have an insane tutorial, which I'm not good at fighting games, and I felt like it really helped me understand the mechanics. I'm still not good enough to execute a lot of this stuff, but it is the most in-depth tutorial I've ever played on a fighting game. They have online components, which are fine. They're your basic online things. You have casual matches or competitive. You can do King of the Hill, where one person just keeps fighting until someone takes them down. I haven't done a ton of online. I'm doing basically what I need to do for the trophy, which is 50 casual matches. I think I'm like 10 matches in right now. I'm 3-7 or something. So I'm not great at these games. And then they have the classic towers, which is you fight between 5 and 10 or 12 opponents, whatever the numbers are, and you get a story of what happens when each person wins by defeating the big bad boss. And then the thing that they were really selling this game on are called the Towers of Time, which they're basically combat towers, but they have modifiers in them where you can basically overpower your character or underpower them, and the other side has powers. So like you can shoot missiles, or you can get health back, things like that, or you can call an assist to help you. And this is really what I think they planned on a lot of the community playing, because this is how you unlock a lot of the customizables for this game.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, this is where the game fell under a lot of flack on its initial release. So I actually they've updated it, and I think it's fine now. I've played a lot of this game. So on its initial release, so how you unlock things in Mortal Kombat are either you complete these towers, or you get gold coins, souls, or hearts from performing fatalities, and you go into what's called the crypt, and you run around the crypt and you find chests and you open them. They're randomized, and so people started claiming like this is like loot boxes because you don't really know what you're getting and things like that. And I will agree it's kind of annoying not knowing what you're getting, but after playing this game for I think like 25 to 30 hours, I've unlocked a fair bit of stuff, so I don't care that much. But I understand if you're playing one character, if you're not getting the unlocks you want, it can be pretty frustrating. But when the game first came out, the rewards for winning were really, really low in comparison to what they updated them to. Like, if you won a match before, I want to say you got like 300 coins, and now if you won a match, you get like 1,000. So they tripled them in some instances.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was pretty rough. I mean, I played a fair bit and I unlocked stuff, but it's definitely nicer. I like the new unlock rate they have. And the other thing was the Towers of Time, when they first released, were really hard. Like, they were near impossible if you weren't using your own modifiers or upgraded your gear in some way. Like, the enemy projectiles coming in, you can block now, but originally you couldn't. So you would just get locked in loops where you couldn't dodge or block this thing. It would knock you over. They would hit you. You get back up, it would hit you again. So it was just like very frustrating loops that were not fun. So I think those complaints were really legitimate, but since they patched it out, I think within the first week that the game was released and they gave you extra hearts, coins, and stuff, I don't think the drop rates are that bad anymore. A lot of people, and this game got a lot of bad press for it, were claiming that Mortal Kombat was encouraging microtransactions, which I think is misleading. You can buy premium currency in Mortal Kombat. They're called crystals. But there is not like a store that you can just buy whatever it is with crystals. They have a rotating list of, I think, 5 things every 12 hours. And it's skins or intros that you can buy with crystals. So there is articles out there that's like, to unlock everything in Mortal Kombat, you need to spend $6,000, which I guess is technically the truth. But that's assuming you just spend that and you don't play the game at all, and you also have to wait for everything to slide around, which would take, I don't know, close to a year, something like that. So,
oh my god,
yeah, like I don't think it's a traditional thing like that. It's more people were frustrated because they weren't having enough currency to open stuff, or the things they wanted were locked behind really hard Towers of Time. Now that I think the Towers of Time are manageable, I think the unlock rate in the crypt is completely fine. I mean, I've opened over probably 300 chests at this point. I have a couple costumes for each character. I have, different items for them. I don't think it's too bad. One interesting thing about this game, though, is you can choose to have the AI play for you. So on some of like the harder Towers of Time, you can just have the computer beat them for you. So that's like another nice way around it. Like one of the trophies is you have to beat 250 towers, and I probably beat like 60 right now. Oh, wow. So I will just put the computer on and read a book while it beats stuff for me, and I'm just grinding money for it. So I mean that's kind of cheating, but also 250 towers is a lot to play through in the game.
Yeah, that's asking a bit.
I gotta say, the fatalities in this game, very gruesome, very cool. They're easier to pull off than I remember from the last Mortal Kombat game I really played hard was Mortal Kombat 3, and I always had a hard time pulling them off. I can do them pretty well in this one, but I wish they had a skip button, because I've seen the same. Each character only has 2 fatalities, so I've seen the same one like 30 or 40 times now. Like, I just want to keep it moving at this point. Overall, I think this game is solid. It dropped down to $50 within its first week of release, I think because of a lot of the negativity. Right now, its user score on Metacritic sitting at 2.9, and it has a lot of zeros, which even if you're mad at the game, I don't think it's a zero game. Like the actual technical fighting aspects of this game are solid. Like it's so much fun to pull off special moves and everything. So I just think that's wrong to pan a game entirely because you didn't like some of its initial practices. Critic score has it at an 83, and I tend to agree with that one more. If I had to put it on a tier, I'd say like this is a B tier game. It's a really good fighting game. If you're into fighting games, you'll like it. Even if you're not that good, you can put it on lower difficulties, which I appreciate because I'm horrible at these games. But like I said, I love the story mode. So I think it's a good game. All right, now on to video game news. Sony recently announced through an interview with Wire that they will definitely be releasing the PlayStation 5, but I guess to be fair, they said an unnamed follow up to the PlayStation 4, but I think it's safe to assume they'll name it the PlayStation 5.
Yep, I would imagine.
Yeah, so I don't want to bring in the whole thing. If you guys want to check it out, it's on Wired. But I just wanted to point out a couple things that I thought were really cool, and I'm excited that make me excited about the PlayStation 5 in a way that I was not excited for the PlayStation 4. One is it seems like it's going to have a solid state drive. There was an example in there where the reporter played Spider-Man and fast traveled, and I've played Spider-Man, and I had fast travel, and I think it takes somewhere between like 50 and 30 seconds on my PlayStation 4 to go from hitting it and then to appearing where you're supposed to. They said in this it took I think a fraction of a second. Like you didn't even go into a loading screen, you just zoomed across the map,
Oh
which is
wow.
crazy to me.
Yeah, that would be very nice.
Yeah, I am excited about that one because my biggest annoyance with a lot of games lately has been loading screens. Why I really do not like playing Battlefront 2 is it takes me like a minute and a half to 2 minutes to go from like starting it on my PlayStation to actually being able to choose a match and then waiting again to choose a match. It takes that long just to load up its main menu, which I think's ridiculous.
Well, you had mentioned fast travel time. I mean, if I had to, I think we talked about this before. Like, if I had to have a gripe with Horizon Zero Dawn, it would be the fact that it takes me like 2 to 3 minutes to travel from one bit of the map to the other using the fast travel mechanic.
Yeah, so I am really excited about this. I wonder if this will hold up for PlayStation 5 games because obviously there's going to be more information in it now, but I'm hoping it helps.
Yeah.
My worry is solid state drives are not inexpensive in comparison to normal hard drives. Like they are considerably more expensive.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I'm wondering if that will jack the price up. The other big thing that I am pumped about, which really disappointed me about the PlayStation 4, but I understand why they didn't do it with the PlayStation 3, is the PlayStation 5 will be backwards compatible.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that I am because I have such a big like PlayStation 4 library building up. Like I'm going to be very excited to play those games on the 5 while I'm waiting for the to get some new games for the 5. That's part of the reason why I love my PlayStation 2 is I think I played Final Fantasy 7 the first time on it, like
Hmm.
2000 or whatever, and if that didn't have that feature, I probably would have never played that game, or at least I wouldn't have it that early.
Oh yeah. Like I have an original PlayStation, but I can't tell you the last time I turned it on because I mean, obviously it was a long time ago. But like I would just play all my PS1 games on my PS2. Like it was great.
The article did not give a price point, which, I'm not surprised about. They claim that it's going to be cheap compared to other computers of its specs, which I think is kind of just them trying to brace the consumer that it's going to be more than the $400 price point that the PlayStation 4 was released at. But they released the PlayStation 3 back in I think 2000 what 6 at $600 and it was disastrous for
Yep.
them. I cannot imagine they put this up to 600. My guess is 499.
I remember that because the that one was like 650. I remember the Xbox that came out alongside it was like five or six too, and then the Wii came out and it was 250, and it sold and sold and sold. And it was like 3 or 4 years later, and the price of the Wii had not dropped at all. It was still holding steady at 250.
Yeah, I mean that's an underrated thing on why I think PlayStation is, well, maybe not underrated, but I mean this has to be a contributing factor as to why PlayStation's winning this generation so hard. The original launch of the Xbox One I think came out at $500, and PlayStation came in at $100 cheaper. And if you don't have brand loyalty, you're sitting there thinking, well, I can get this thing that is basically the same. I don't have like the annoying controls that the Kinect controls that Xbox is forcing on me, and I can either buy another controller or I can buy a game.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when the Xbox One came out, and it was, or when it was announced anyway, and it was met with a fair amount of negative emotion, because I remember part of it was it had to be connected like once a day, or you wouldn't be, like, it had to be connected to the internet once a day, or you couldn't, it would like lock your account for amount of time.
Yep, it had the DRM always online stuff. I mean, they had a lot of stumbling blocks going out the gate on that one, which I don't think they're going to repeat those mistakes again. And I'm hoping Sony is not like complacent in their strategy and they stay competitive with Xbox, because I think it's better for both consoles. I think the industry in general, when they are both actually being innovative. Like Xbox Game Pass is awesome, and I kind of hope PlayStation takes that idea from them, but that's like one thing that could help them in the next generation is if they really push that. In other news, we're going to be talking about a topic that I think is gaming adjacent. proJared is a YouTube game reviewing personality. He had over 1 million subscribers. He's someone who I actually used to watch pretty consistently until maybe 2016 when he stopped releasing reviews. Maybe he would do it like maybe once a year, and he started focusing on Let's Plays in D&D, which I don't really like Let's Plays, so I lost interest when he wasn't releasing videos. But last week, I believe it was on May 9th, he released an announcement that him and his wife were getting a divorce, with some key points being that he said that him and his wife had tried therapy. It was for both their well-beings, and he hoped that they, could move on amicably, blah, blah, blah. And normally, divorces happen. This would not be a thing that becomes news. But as soon as he said that, his wife came out on Twitter and said, I gave Jared, his wife's name's Heidi. Heidi says, I gave Jared a chance to come out in his own way, and he did it by trying to throw me under the bus. And she went on to say that Jared had been cheating on her with another YouTube personality from the Game Grumps named Holly for over a year, and that he had made her feel horrible about herself and blamed her for their marriage, all the while he was cheating on her, and she was like trying to reconcile it. Um, and then she claims that he had blocked her on Twitter, so she couldn't even see his release. She had to hear about it from friends. And then, I mean, it was crazy. Then what started coming out of the woodwork at this point. Uh, Holly tried to come to Jared's defense, and then Heidi, insulted her, saying stuff about her sending nudes and that she was basically a homewrecker. And then we found out that proJared had allegedly pressured fans to send him sexually explicit images, which I think this turns out to be true because there are now nudes of proJared floating around online. And then the biggest thing to come out of this was it seems like he solicited these images from underage children, underage kids who are probably 16, 15 at the time. I think 7 or 8 people have come out so far. And so while this is all going on Twitter, this blows up and becomes the number one trending topic. So people who had never heard of this guy before were weighing in. And he got kicked off of his own subreddit as a moderator. They turned it into they posted memes about him, and then they shut it down. All of his YouTube videos have just been bombarded with negative comments. His Twitch was bombarded with negative comments, and he lost 200,000 subscribers in the past, I want to say 4 days. He lost 100,000 on May 9th alone. He went from having like 1.1 to like, he's in the 800,000s now, which is still respectable, but I mean, it was a real fallout.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Did you get a chance to check out any of this, Christian?
I did. I read the Kotaku article that you had sent. It's oh man, it's a mess. So like, first of all, why? I mean, I understand that he blocked her, right? But like, she's a fairly like she's a she's a fairly prolific like online presence herself, right?
Yeah,
His wife.
she's a cosplayer. I knew who she was because I watched his videos and had seen his Twitter before, and he's like, I'm going with my wife, and I checked her out. I think he was definitely much more of a public figure, but I think in her own sphere of cosplay, she was probably pretty well known.
So like, why would you go online and post this stuff that you knew was going to probably rile her up when you know she has like her own like her own sphere of influence, and like even if you blocked her, like that's gonna get to her one way or another, and like what do you imagine her response is going to be?
Well, right. So this is what's interesting is if her, and I think we'll get into this in a little bit. If her claims are to be believed, he was abusing her in some way, and I couldn't pick up if it was like physical, if it was sexual, if it was like emotional, it was mental. My feeling was it was like an emotional manipulation and mental abuse. I think his thinking, if this is true, that she would just sit there and take it, and then he could direct the narrative.
I guess it's just one of those things that it's like there was a mistake here made. I mean, I'm sure there were many mistakes here made, but like in the immediate way that this played out, like if he had just kept his mouth shut and been like, we're getting a divorce, like we ask for your like support in this time, and just left it at that, I feel like a lot of this would have been avoided, this like public ugliness. But
Well, yeah.
he had to run his mouth a little bit and provoke her, I guess.
Yeah, and so also I don't think anyone could have imagined this blow up the way it did because I mean like while he has a million subscribers, like he's pretty much a what like a C-list celebrity. Like I don't even know what you would call him. Like how many people in your life know who he was? I'm the only person I've ever known who's like, oh yeah, I watch proJared
Hmm.
in real life. So I don't know if he's expecting that. Um, But yeah, like even if he had just come clean and said, like me and my wife are having troubles, I don't know, just don't make a statement at that point, like all
Yeah.
right, we're trying if you're trying to try and work it out privately, but again, I think he was like trying to control the narrative so that he wouldn't hurt his career, and she burned it down.
Yeah, I listen to a pop culture podcast, and I know that one of the points they make regularly is you don't always have to say something. It's okay to just say nothing about these things sometimes.
I mean, that's what he's doing now. He has not made a statement since she released that. Like, I don't think there's any. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's taking that. But so, I mean, that's the main parts that were just insane to watch. Like everyone's reaction on Twitter, which is its own form of entertainment. But then watching that got me thinking about, I think, some topics that are slightly more substantive and interesting, which is one, generally, when is someone considered a public figure enough for the public to really have a say or be allowed to voice their opinions on like these people's dirty laundries in like specifically like him cheating on her and their divorce.
So I don't know if it's about being a public figure. I think it's maybe about the mode at which this dirty laundry becomes public. Like if this was like these two were having problems and like somebody found out about it and like made a big thing about it, I think like that's crappy to like jump all over it then. But I think since they're going to like have their argument in public, I like that's like they're the players and they're the ones who chose like the arena in which this is going to be decided, and so I think it's pretty much fair game for people to have opinions now, if like since they're the ones who brought it out into the public to begin with. Like you get what you like. It is what you make of it. You reap what you sow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see your point on that, especially because he is the one who released like the public statement first, trying to form the narrative, and then you get a fire back. It's so much, and I think this one maybe is a little bit of a special case because everyone is very fired up about spousal infidelity. I think you don't see many people being like, yeah, you should be able to cheat on your spouse. Uh, but like, had this just been a normal divorce, I don't think it blows up the way it did. And I think if people started commenting it as much, had this just been like an amicable one, I think that would have been less fair to talk about. But I think you add like these incendiary elements, especially because, like you said, they are fighting in a very public space. Like Heidi released a lot of tweets about this, so like I think people in general should maybe refrain from this in some instances, but maybe not necessarily in this one.
Yeah. Like, I mean, first, like, don't don't cheat on your spouse. Like, and problem solved. Don't solicit like nude pictures from strangers.
Thing like
Yeah.
if there is some form of sexual predation involved, I think it's always fair to call that out.
Oh yeah,
But
100%.
I mean, I'm speaking more in the abstract of like trying to disassociate this idea from proJared right now because that, like, now that that's come out, that's like a whole nother level where it's like, whoa, like someone needs to look into this.
Yeah.
The other one that I want to follow up on that is uh, Holly had come to support Jared in some way and sort of implied that Heidi was lying, but didn't come out and deny these allegations. So Heidi sent a tweet back at her that basically said, "You looked very insecure in the nudes you sent my husband. Maybe you would help your self confidence if you didn't bang other women's husbands, or bang married men." And then people, like, not a ton, but some people got on Heidi being like, "That's a low blow. Like, you can't call her out. This isn't her fault. Like, you can't call it mistresses." And I'm sitting there thinking, like, I guess maybe you have a point if like this is an innocent player and she had no idea that this guy was married, but like this was like a family friend. Like this was clearly premeditated. I think it's totally fair to call her out when she tries to insinuate that you are lying.
First of all, that's an amazing tweet. But yes, you're right. Like if this was somebody who had been like hoodwinked, like, oh, I had no idea that he was married, then like yeah, that's like the mistake was not hers to the like so she should be left alone, right? Like she's just as much a victim as he is, but that is not the case here. Like if you are a willing participant in like knowing and willing, then like that's a whole other ballgame. Then like you are just as guilty.
Yeah, and here's the thing, like apparently Holly and Jared do live D&D campaigns. They apparently they created characters who were dating in the game, which is just a whole nother undercurrent when all this comes out and it's like, wow, you guys are bold.
Yeah, that's that's on another level.
And then the last point I want to get to, which I want to be clear, I'm not asking this to justify Jared's cheating, getting underage nudes, and I'm not defending what is I think is scummy behavior on him if it's true. But I just like to explore this idea a little bit. Can you just take a Twitter user's word about a fact? Like, had no other information come out about the underage nudes and stuff, Jared releases a statement and his wife immediately says Jared cheated on me and then everyone piles on. Like how does a Twitter user decide who's right and who's wrong? I mean, like she could be totally lying. In this instance, I don't think she is with everything that else that came out. But in general, like do you just believe what you hear on Twitter?
Yeah, it's that's a tough one. Like context is important. I think like you have to look at the whole picture. You have to consider the source. And I mean the source here is especially tricky because it's like I don't really know this person at all, right? Like I'm not a part of this world, so I don't know how reliable they are to begin with. That they're obviously have a reason to like mess up this dude's life and future, but like so I think at the outset if I had been a part of this right from the beginning, watching the story unfold, I would have been a little skeptical. But then, like, as more information comes out, then it's gonna be like tough to refute. But if it's somebody that like, if it's a public figure that I was familiar with, and like I was like, oh, that person seems like they're on the up and up, then I would be a little more willing to believe, kind of sight unseen. But I approach it with skepticism at the beginning, just because I don't really know this person at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think this is a little bit different than when news sources do this, but my like let's just say, completely hypothetical on this. They were actually getting a divorce, and she just completely lies about him cheating. Or if he was cheating on her, like she ends up being the abuser or something like that. I feel like context does matter in some way where everyone should not jump on the bandwagon immediately. Um, in general, like I feel like before you react, you should get all of the facts about what's going on. And it's hard to do on Twitter because no one's going to give you the entirety of this. And in this case, it seems justified as to what happened to him. But like when this was happening, I had actually just listened to a podcast about an author who wrote a book about the Oculus Rift and who did interviews with Palmer Luckey and stuff. And do you know who that is?
I do not know.
So Palmer Luckey, he owns Oculus Rift. Facebook bought it for I think like $4 billion or something like that. And then he was an open Trump supporter, which was rare for Silicon Valley. And in 2016, the Daily Beast released an article that said Palmer Luckey had been, tech billionaire, had been funding troll farms for Donald Trump. Pretty incendiary headline, especially for a lot of people in his sphere, because they obviously, Donald Trump is not popular in Silicon Valley. Um, so on Twitter, a lot of people started piling on Palmer Luckey about this. They're like, I knew it. This stupid red pill guy, he's creating this troll farm, blah, blah, blah. And he basically gets ostracized from Facebook and most likely fired because of his political views that he was a Trump supporter. And so the guy who's writing this book is a liberal. So I tend to believe him, and I've read his articles and I've seen kind of what came out of this. Palmer Luckey was not actually running a troll farm. He had donated $10,000 to like some super PAC, or not super PAC, but some political cause that put up one billboard in Pittsburgh that was a meme making fun of Hillary Clinton. So there was like nothing online about it. And it just got me thinking, like, I don't support Donald Trump, but like the Daily Beast completely distorted that to ruin this guy, and no one fact checked it. Well, not
Yeah,
ruin. He's
and
still a billionaire, but he got treated very unfairly in the public opinion on something like, if you still find that heinous that he gave $10,000 to a Donald supporter who ran one ad, like that's your right. But I think that is way less of an issue than him saying he ran a troll farm, because during the election, how many memes did you see of that stuff? Like, it was very annoying.
oh my god, yeah.
But like what they insinuate he was behind wasn't what he was behind.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because when I was looking around for this topic, for the proJared story, the first thing on Google was an article by the Daily Beast.
And that's why that's see, like, if I had not heard this podcast, I would not have thought of the context, this, and been like, well, proJared, seems worse. But just the idea of like piling on people when you don't really know the facts, or you're trusting on people for the facts. And I think when you see people retweeting, I think when you see people retweeting stuff, or you see a lot of people commenting in the affirmative, it gives credence to that this is true, even if maybe it's not.
Yeah, I mean, Twitter's a hellscape from which there is no escape. Um, it's there's a lot of really terrible things that come out of that platform, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, stuff like this, I kind of just shrug at. Like, I'm not really in this in this culture or community of YouTubers. I think it's a not great like thing that's popped up. This like weird, like you said, kind of C-list celebrities that just kind of pop up just from doing nothing but like talking. I mean, I say that tentatively because it's literally what we're doing now, but
Well, we're not
um,
celebrities.
no, but like these people who get famous just kind of by happenstance of like they're the ones that get popular doing the same thing that everyone else is doing, but no one really knows who they are. And so when stuff like this comes out, you just have to be like, well, nobody knew who this person was, and then they got mega popular, and now people are finding out who this person is, and so it's like, yeah, like the whole YouTube culture is a little strange for me, and it's always made me a little bit uneasy for kind of this exact reason.
Yeah, I mean, I think YouTube culture is ripe for exploitation of younger kids. And just before we leave, I want to be very clear. Like, I do not support proJared in this. I just wanted to, have a discussion in general about, I guess, checking things out before blindly believing them online,
Yeah.
which I think happens too much for a lot of people, and you see it with the proliferation of fake news out there. All right, now it's time for the Amazon review game. Just a quick recap. I have three five-star Amazon reviews for a movie. I will read them to Christian. Christian will get two yes or no questions to help him narrow them down for each review, and then he will have to take a final guess. We're keeping score, so if he gets it on the first review, he gets 3 points, 2 points for the second review, and 1 point for the third review. And then at the end of the year, we'll tally them all up. Are you ready, Christian?
I am.
An amazing classic Will Ferrell performance as always. If you're a fan of his work, you surely won't be disappointed. Not a film for the kiddos, but a great, easygoing, lighthearted adult comedy. Good one to watch when your brain needs to not work too hard.
Does this movie involve sports?
Not as a primary focus.
Does this movie have John C. Riley?
Uh, no.
Okay, that narrows it down. All right, give me another review.
This movie is always great for a laugh. If you like movies like The Naked Gun, you'll love this one. The street fight between the competing network news teams is unforgettable.
Anchorman.
Yes. You're right. You could have gone rough there, though. It could have been Anchorman too.
It could. Well, John C. Riley was in Anchorman too.
Oh, was he? Okay. Way to
Yes.
narrow it down.
He plays the ghost of Stonewall Jackson. He's in the big fight.
Yeah, that one's hard to find a review for that does not just be like Ron Burgundy's amazing.
Yeah, I can imagine. Oh man, I should watch that again. That movie's great.
Surprisingly low score on Amazon. I think it was like in the like 3 point something range.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah, I think it's a really funny movie. All right, guys, thanks for listening to our show. Christian, what are you going to be checking out this week?
Well, there's a couple movies I got behind on. In the Endgame frenzy. Detective Pikachu came out last week. I definitely want to give that a look. I've heard it's quite good. I was told it was everything you could want from a live action Pokemon movie, so I'm pretty excited for that. Hustle came out last week as well with Anne Hathaway and Rebel Wilson that I want to see. John Wick 3 comes out this week. I've not seen John Wick 1 or 2, which I kind of feel bad about. My friends have told me they're both amazing, and I do kind of want to see this one, so I might have to try and get caught up with that in the next couple weeks. Other than that, I downloaded one of the free game of the months for PlayStation called What Remains of Edith Finch. I've heard from a couple people that it's pretty fun and like it's a short play, so I'm probably gonna get into that this week.
Cool. John Wick 1 is awesome. I really like John Wick 2, but I think that one might be more hit or miss for some people. But I am excited for John Wick 3, but I will not get a chance to see it this week. I'll probably see it in another week or two. And same with Detective Pikachu. I'll probably see that in a week or two when the hype for it dies down and I can go to a cheaper movie for it.
Yeah.
This week, I am going to probably be playing more Mortal Kombat. I really just want to get the platinum on that one. And then I want to finish up Anthem because it is pretty much, I think, dying as we speak. So whenever I finish that, we'll talk about that again. And we can go over everything that's happened since its release, where it's been insane what's been happening to that game. Uh, it had like started low, got a little higher, and then I think went lower lower than before. And then this week too, I am reading a pretty cool book called The Mastermind. It's about this criminal named Paul LaRue who ran like an online pharmacy and then got into the drug world. It's pretty awesome. I think I'm going to finish it tomorrow. I'll have read like it in 3 days. It's that good. But
Nice.
otherwise, not much else.
Cool.
All right. All right, guys. Thanks for checking out our episode. If you want to reach us, you can find us on Twitter at Gambots Network, or you can email us at gambots.blog@gmail.com. We'd really like to hear some suggestions for Amazon review games. And also, I guess we don't normally do this, but I've read we should. If you guys are listening on iTunes, if you could rate us, even if you don't like us, we'd appreciate to get some feedback on it and leave a review on there. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.